So, what do you do if you've already got all of your files organized on an external hard drive and you're happy with the organization that you've developed? If we launch up Aperture, and if we go to the Import menu, the computer will scan all drives connected to the computer. If we click on my FireWire drive here, photo drive, and if I navigate my way through to the files that I want to import, this looks very similar to when we're importing from a memory card. I have my thumbnails, I have my location and my destination of the files, and again we've got our import window. Although this time, in store files, instead of in the Aperture library or in a previously chosen destination, I'm going to choose in their current location. That means that Aperture will import references of these files but keep the masters, all of those raw files or JPEGs or TIFFs, in their current location, i.e. on the photo drive. If I go down and hit Import All, and if we go to Window and Activity, you'll notice that the files have imported by the time I've done that. That's the benefit of importing from a hard drive. Because they're not being imported or copied across, all Aperture has to do is import the references, which is very, very quick. I'll just go ahead and click OK. We don't have the eject button anymore because we're not dealing with the memory card. All it will tell us to do is that the import is complete. And I'll close the activity window. And all Aperture has to do is update some thumbnails so that we can access these files, whether they're online, offline, whether the hard drive's plugged in, whether the hard drive is not plugged in. Now, if for some reason you have a mixture of files which have been imported into Aperture and files which are on the hard drive, there's one visual clue on each thumbnail to let you know the status of each file. If we go back to that first import from earlier on, we can see that these files are imported and they're located on the hard drive. The difference with the files that we've just imported, which are on an external hard drive, is this little symbol here. This just lets us know that the file is referenced. Again, I'll go back to Metallica, and we can see we have this tag file which just lets me know that I've adjusted some metadata to the file. And back to the Bon Jovi files, and again we have this reference. It's like the alias logo when you create a shortcut on your desktop. If you do have your library split between files which are managed in Aperture and referenced on an external drive, wouldn't it be best to get those files out of Aperture onto the hard drive to join the other files? It's a very, very simple thing to do. So we've looked at the Bon Jovi files, these are all referenced, and we've worked out that the Metallica files are in the internal library, they are taking up my hard drive space. So I'll go ahead and click on the images and choose Edit, Select All. And under the File command, I've got a great command called Relocate Masters. This is going to take the master files out of Aperture and move them, not copy them, but move them onto my external drive. So I'll go ahead and click on that. And it presents me with options where to move the files to. I'm going to choose my photo drive, and I could create a folder if I didn't have one already. Let's have a look here. I've got a Metallica file. So I'm going to pop them in my Metallica file. I'm going to hit Relocate Masters. Now, I could choose to create subfolders if I wanted to. Again, this should start to look very familiar where you've got some previews of different styles that you can choose to rename the files with. We can choose again whether we want to use the master file name or take this opportunity to rename the files. And this will then just let us know what it's going to look like once we've chosen those options. Well, I renamed them when I imported, so I want to keep that name as I export. So I've chosen where I want to go to, click Relocate Masters, and Aperture just scans through the files and moves them from the library onto the external hard drive. This will actually free up space on your hard drive. You don't have to delete anything afterwards. And there we go. How do we know that they've been moved? Well, each file has now been given the little referenced logo, the badge that I talked about earlier. We can see it's like the alias arrow saying that this file has moved. If we have a look at the Bon Jovi files, they're the same. So my Aperture library should now be nice and empty, and everything is on my external hard drive. What if I then want to move the files back into the Aperture, bring them off the hard drive and take them with me on the internal hard drive? That's not a problem. Again, I'm going to select a file and do Edit Select All. I can go to File again, and just below Relocate Masters we have Consolidate Masters. That's the opposite. Relocate puts them on a hard drive, Consolidate brings them off a hard drive. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Consolidate, and then I've got an option here. Do I want to copy the files or move them? Do I want to keep them on the hard drive and have them on my internal Aperture library, or do I want to move them from the hard drive and only have them? I'm going to choose Move and Continue. And it's the same process as before. Aperture quickly scans, finds where those files are, and brings them across. And how do I know if I've been successful? Well, the reference badge has disappeared. These files are now managed, they are in the Aperture library.